Hey there, friends. Welcome back to another Legally Armed America video. I'm, of course, Paul Glasgow here. Well, the media is mad. Sometimes when you don't let the media control the narrative, they get a little upset. That includes their distaste for the current White House and being mad that now they're not included in decision-making as far as controlling that very narrative. I'm talking about chickens and the bird flu. Headline, what the White House meant when it said Biden directed the mass killing of 100 million chickens. Now, I took the liberty, for fairness' sake, because I don't want it to look like I'm controlling the narrative, of taking everything that you see right here that I'm about to show you from the CNN websites. More specifically, in this case, the CNN business website. And there's a reason for that. Because CNN attempts to call the White House out by basically saying that they said something incorrectly and saying that they needed to put what the White House said in context. So I wanted to show you how the media lies and how, once again, the White House was right, Karoline Leavitt more specifically. You might remember last week, Karoline Leavitt mentioned that the Biden administration had killed a bunch of chickens. Well, this is that story. Quote, at her first White House briefing, Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt made an unusual claim about the inflation that has stung American shoppers for years. Leavitt said egg prices have continued to surge because, quote, the Biden administration and the Department of Agriculture directed the mass killing of more than 100 million chickens. So CNN is attempting to, based on their headline, say that the White House was incorrect in how they framed the story. Again, their headline was what the White House meant when it said Biden directed a mass killing of 100 million chickens. So they go on to state in this particular article, again, I'm pulling from CNN Business. There's a reason why I keep referring you to CNN Business, because this is very important that I'm using their own information against them because they contradict themselves. They state, on the campaign trail in 2024, Trump promised lower grocery prices starting on day one. So I want you to understand that. They're actually putting in quotes that Trump said he would control and lower grocery prices starting on day one, which would have been January 20th. They even link back to the article as if they are referencing an actual article that includes that particular quote. Well, guess what? They're not, because they made this quote up that says starting on day one. So this is what CNN is saying Trump said, and when I follow their link to their own article, this is what Trump actually said. This was from this fall heading into the election. This was prior to November 5th. President-elect Donald Trump says Americans not being able to afford groceries, he does not talk about eggs, will be a relic of the past. Quote, they're going to be affording their groceries very soon. That's what Trump actually said. Let's go back to what they said he said. They say that Trump claims starting on day one that he would lower grocery prices. Again, not specific to eggs, but what Trump actually said was they're going to be affording their groceries very soon. I don't know how you confuse day one and very soon with one another, but they are actually contradicting themselves instead of making their own case. Because the way I see it, we are still in the very soon stages of Trump's presidency because he's only been in office for 4 weeks. And that doesn't mean that he didn't start trying to lower prices on groceries, which is what he said, on day one. He didn't say on day one you will be paying less for groceries. He said they're going to be affording their groceries very soon. He did not say on day one that you would have lower grocery prices. That's like somebody coming to pick you up at your house and you ask them what time are they going to be there. If they say very soon, you probably have a minute to get ready. If they say, I'm here already, that's not the same as very soon. There is a difference in time. If we're going to use facts and talk about actual stuff here, we got to be honest with ourselves. And again, this is CNN linking to their own story that shows that they are not being truthful with this information about the birds being killed. Now, more on the birds being killed. It's an actual thing. It really did happen. And there are supposedly, according to the USDA, reasons for all of this. As bird flu ravages poultry industry, the damage spreads. More than 20 million egg-laying chickens in the U.S. died last quarter because of bird flu. Data from the U.S. Department of Agriculture shows, marking the worst toll inflicted on America's egg supply since the outbreak began. Again, final quarter, fourth quarter, 2024. For those of you that are having a little bit of a hard time wrapping your head around that because you come from the left side of the aisle, that would be October, November, and December. Biden ordered the execution of 20 million egg-laying chickens. I guess that excludes roosters, right? Oh, unless they're trans roosters. Now, regarding the 100 million chicken deaths, that was accurate. USDA data shows 108 million egg-laying chickens, excluding the trans chickens, died since 2022. Yeah, that's halfway through Biden's administration. So she was factually correct, including 13 million in 2025. So far, we've killed an additional 13 million in 2025. So understanding, and we have to be honest with ourselves here, understanding that Biden really did not make this decision. I mean, you guys do understand that, right? Even those of you who are coming in, the wackos from the far left, y'all do understand Biden's not making that decision. As much as I dislike that old fart from mooching off of the federal government for 50 years and stealing money from taxpayers in other countries, I can't hang this on Biden. Biden didn't know what was going on. He didn't know what level of diarrhea he had in his man diaper. He was clueless. He didn't know how the corn got in his diaper. He didn't know what was going on. This is the Obama surrogates and the Obama people who are doing this. Obama is very worried about his legacy. What better way to ruin someone who likely is going to have a stronger and much better legacy like Donald Trump than to sabotage the country and the economy prior to that person taking over? In other words, third quarter, most of it, we knew that Donald Trump was going to be taking over as president in January of 2025. So in the third quarter, if we killed 20 million chickens and another 13 million at the beginning of 2025, that was the Biden administration, by the way, who did that via the USDA mandating that. What better way to control a portion of the economy by terminating all those chickens? Now, I'm not saying they didn't have, at least partially, a viable reason for doing that. But what better way to hammer that, including killing off a lot of innocent, let's just say healthy chickens. I guess they're all innocent, right? To a certain degree. You're going to control egg prices for a very long time because you just eliminated, they mentioned all these chickens minus the trans chickens were egg-laying chickens. And I guess the trans chickens, depending on if they were trans male or trans rooster or trans hen chickens, I guess that would be, that's kind of confusing to me. So they would have to call themselves a trans hen would be a rooster, but a trans rooster would be a hen. So the trans roosters, including the hens. I'm not trying to complicate this. They complicated it. I'm just trying to simplify it. So that means that you control a portion of the economy going forward because you're controlling the protein or the meat portion of it. Obviously the chickens, because you're not just going to toss those chickens when they get done laying eggs. You're going to butcher them. And then, of course, all the eggs that they would have laid. Let's just say that a chicken, if they're laying an egg a day, that's 20 million eggs right there that you just eliminated per day or however long or frequent the frequency is that these hens are laying eggs or the trans roosters. So you can control that long term as you wait for these newer chicks to mature into chickens, egg-laying chickens. So you can control that. Again, you're controlling the protein portion of it and the egg portion of it. The protein portion might be a little bit later on regarding the meat, because obviously they would have laid eggs until they were butchered. So again, I'm not trying to get too deep into the egg market, but I want you to understand that it's a very good way to kind of toss a smoke bomb into the Trump administration by the Biden/Obama administration at the tail end of his at the Biden administration by doing this, by killing off these chickens, because you know it's going to have lasting effects easily rolling into the Trump administration. Now, you know another way that it hurts us, the taxpayer, and it's going to be something that's going to get blamed on to Trump. The killing off of all of those chickens has a residual effect that also, outside of the meat and the eggs, it has an indirect but direct effect to those of us who actually pay taxes. I don't mean the people who are sitting on their couches with Cheetos dust up to their elbows. I'm talking about those of us that actually work. Taxpayers will pick up the tab for that 20 to 108 million dead birds to incentivize these farmers to quickly report and stomp out the virus, meaning killing the birds. A USDA program pays producers for the eggs and the poultry that they cull. So what they're going to do is they're going to kind of like look into the future with this. How much money would they have made on the chickens? What's the lifespan of the chicken? How many eggs would it have laid? So that's that much revenue that the chicken farmer lost out on from the meat and from the eggs. We pay for that. Taxpayers do. What's that going to do? That's going to offset any savings that Doge or anybody else is trying to reel in right now. That's going to get passed back on us because, again, USDA is writing checks for all this stuff. That's a lot of money. We're talking about over 2 years, 108 million eggs, chickens were eliminated. That's a lot of eggs. That's a lot of chicken meat. Now, real quick, H5N1 bird flu, what is it? I've got a couple little charts here from CDC. I've done a video on this a while back. It's a tough virus because it can be spread from, let's say, mallard ducks, other forms of ducks, obviously, but mallards, a lot of mallards are getting it. And it can be spread to chickens, and it can be spread through their saliva, their blood, or their feces. Now, currently, the virus cannot be spread from human to human, but the CDC and everybody else who wants to make money keeps threatening that it can mutate and eventually pass from human to human. Right now, it can only pass from poultry, turkeys, geese, ducks, chickens, to humans. And it does that by saliva, say a runny nose, for instance. If you cough and the spit from these chickens, I guess you don't have a lot of spitting chickens, so that's not going to be too much of a threat. But of course, the feces. And as you guys know, chickens are kind of a dirty animal. So between, you look at their illustration at the bottom, flapping of the wings, scratching of the feet, shaking of the head, they can definitely spread this if you are in the industry of working with these farm animals. Now, it can be spread to cows as well from the chickens. I imagine the same way. One thing that I got to pass on, I thought this was kind of comical. This is the CDC who made these charts. Notice how scared they are when they put these charts together. You notice the first chart that has the chickens in it? It's an old white dude, like a Casper the Friendly Ghost white dude. Notice how the one with the cows has a black guy, and I guess you would call that a, quote, person of color, the female down below. Well, they sure were really careful to make sure they didn't put the black guy with the chicken. I guess that would have definitely nailed down some stereotypes out there that they wouldn't have been happy with. So they took pains to make sure they didn't include a picture of a black guy into the one with the chicken. Have a good laugh at that, guys. Sometimes we can laugh at stupid stuff. But this is not much, if any, of a real threat at all to humans. Current situation, this is per the CDC, person-to-person spread, none. There is no known person-to-person spread at this time. Current public health risk, low. The current public health risk is low with one death. The one death you see down there in the U.S., by the way, that was a 65-year-old Louisiana woman. Now, I'm going to say this, guys. Let's be honest, and I think the CDC, they're known for lying, so I don't expect them to be truthful, but I can be. During COVID, remember all the people who died of COVID? They really didn't die of COVID. Some of them were 400 pounds overweight. Some of them were 89 years old. These were things that if they got a walk around cold, like just caught a cold from somebody, it could have also killed them. When a 65-year-old person, and again, I know 65, as people's health is better, we don't know the condition of that lady, that 65-year-old lady. She might have been in tip-top health. She might have been 300 pounds overweight. And she could have had a lot of other comorbidities. When you're that old and you get a virus of any kind, whether it's a flu, a cold, you could get a stomach ache, or stomach virus rather. Older you are, the more susceptible you are. So I don't see anybody panicking because a 65-year-old woman in Louisiana, we are known for overeating down here. I don't see anyone panicking as a result of that one death. So it's not a big deal. In fact, as you see, there's only 69 confirmed cases in the United States. And these are the areas where you've actually gotten confirmed cases of H5N1, the bird flu. So where do we go from here, right? Obviously, it's enough of a big deal to where they're talking about it. It's always in the news. Whether or not it was a political thing to throw that stink bomb into the Trump administration by wiping out 100 and something chickens, especially the 20 to 30 million that were done in the last few months, knowing that Trump was going to be taking over. What do we do from here? Obviously, either it's a problem that they're making it a problem and make it seem worse than what it was, or it is a legitimate problem and someone who's legitimate, I don't believe any of them to be honest with you, but someone out there thinks this could be a problem. Otherwise, they wouldn't be going through all this trouble to try to eradicate it and deal with these chickens. Are you tired of hearing the word vaccine? Well, get used to it. Because now instead of allowing these birds to develop their own resistance, meaning their immune system, which evolves, the viruses evolve over time. This includes with humans, obviously. Viruses evolve. There's not one kind of virus. That virus evolves and mutates. And whenever you have that, like the flu vaccine, for instance, there's a different flu strain every year. The flu vaccine is a guess. Like that flu vaccine is developed the year prior. They are guessing what flu strain is going to be out there for, say, 2025, right? They guess that in 2024. Sometimes they get it right, sometimes they get it wrong. Right now, the flu vaccine is only 15% effective. So quite frankly, they guessed wrong. If it's only half effective, it's only preventing that much. So what happens is you guess right, you guess wrong. In this case, instead of them allowing, which I think would be a smart thing to do, allow the chicken's own immune system, because nature made it this way, to evolve and fight off H5N1, the bird flu, they're wanting to put out a vaccine. And they say that's the only way that we can cure this. Now, the problem with that, and this is a big problem, is that I'm not even talking about the problem of putting spike proteins and whatever you want to call that into our food and then we eat it, because a lot of us did not take their vaccine that they're still in the developmental experimental stages with, that a whole bunch of people were mandated to take. Many of us didn't take it. So we don't have that mRNA in our bodies. That's what this vaccine would be. It would be in the chickens. And then we would eat it, and probably unknowingly eat it, because if they mandate it, which they're probably going to do, understand this, the federal government who's paying for all this, if they mandate it, then we pretty much have to stop eating chickens or raise our own. Now, raising our own brings up a whole nother thing. At what point do they mandate that if you have your own non-industry chickens, your backyard chickens, your backyard flocks, when do they mandate you to vaccinate your own chickens, or you can't have chickens anymore? Has anyone thought of that? If they decide that a vaccine has to be administered to poultry plants nationwide, when does that get to your door? Because it's going to get there. It will. There's no way they're going to mandate that on an entire industry and allow you and I to have chickens in our backyard who are not, quote, vaccinated. And I say quote because here we go again, fast tracking another vaccine. But another residual effect, and this is probably way bigger, is the very fact that if we vaccinate chickens here, we export a ton of chickens, probably literally tons of them. We export to a lot of other countries who do not raise their own chickens. A lot of other countries around the world will not allow the importation of vaccinated chickens. So if we go to vaccinating our chickens and mandate that nationwide in the United States, there are countries who are going to refuse the import of those very chickens. And that, again, here we go again with this long-term effect on our economy. That's going to affect the chicken farmers in the United States, because this is money they're banking on now that they're not going to get anymore. You don't think we export a lot of chickens? Here's a chart from the USDA that shows how much poultry we export from the country. Now, it says poultry meat and products, excluding eggs. Y'all know what they're talking about, right? They're talking about chicken lips, chicken buttholes, chicken elbows. That's what they're talking about. So there's meat, and then there's other stuff that belongs to a chicken that we export, right? Chicken McNuggets is a perfect example. That ain't chicken meat. But if you look here, Mexico imports $1.47 billion worth of chicken a year. Canada, China, Cuba, Taiwan, Guatemala, Philippines, Vietnam, Angola, Hong Kong. That is a lot of money that our chicken producers in the United States, $5.66 billion worth of chicken, that's a 3-year average, that our farmers would no longer make in some cases, because not all of these countries outlaw the importation of vaccinated chickens, but a lot of that $5.66 billion would go away. That's going to hurt our country. That's going to hurt our country. That will certainly hit the economy because these people are going to have to find other ways to feed their families if they lose that amount of money. Now, I'm sitting here talking about a bird flu vaccine. Did you realize there was such a thing? Did you realize that they had developed a vaccine for chickens? This is not a vaccine for us yet. They haven't figured out yet how to vaccinate us for H5N1. But they're trying to get to a point where they can push a bird flu vaccine onto birds. There's a certain company that you might recognize, I'll tell you more in a second, that just got approval for this vaccine.
It says it just got approval from the USDA for its avian flu vaccine for poultry. Joining us now for an exclusive interview is Zoetis CEO Kristin Peck, and she joins us on set. Welcome. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. It is great to be here, especially after such excellent results and the great news of our conditional licensure of our high-path avian influenza vaccine for poultry.
So I do actually want to start right there because we've seen what egg prices are doing in the midst of this bird flu. We've seen it spread to other types of animals. We've seen it spread even to some humans. We've seen it show up in the inflation data just this week. What does this vaccine mean, and how quickly can it be deployed?
Sure. I mean, what we've seen is a significant impact to the poultry industry from high-path avian influenza across the globe, but certainly in the U.S., especially in the layer population, which is driving the increase in the egg prices. We've also seen it, as you know, in dairy cattle, and it's now in humans. So it's very One Health. We've been working with the administration and with Congress, and we're very excited today to get the licensure for it in poultry, which we think will be a tool that we will help support the government as they, deem necessary. So we'll continue to do whatever the government wants there.
Support the government as the government deems necessary. This story actually came out either right at the end of the Biden administration or a couple of days into the Trump administration. So they were referring to all the teamwork that they had associated with Zoetis getting this approval came from the Biden administration. And they talk about how they're willing to work with the government depending on what the government mandates going forward. So they're already talking about all of this, not just giving the vaccine to these birds, but they're talking about more involvement by the federal government to push this vaccine onto companies to mandate this. Now, Zoetis, who is this company, right? This is a company who makes, and this is crazy that this is even a thing, but they make drugs for animals. I went to their website, and of course you can see, here we go with the buzzword, sustainability. Ooh, that means green. Remember that. Anytime you see sustainability, that means that this is somebody who is trying to get their social credit score bumped up a little bit because they have to reference green stuff to satisfy all the world people that want them to reference green stuff. But Zoetis is the world's leading animal health company. They've been around for a little bit, and they pride themselves on, get this, I could not believe this, annual sales revenue of $8.5 billion. This is a company that makes pharmaceuticals for animals, and they bring in $8.5 billion a year. That is incredible to me. I would have never guessed in a million years that any kind of company would have done that. But you sit here and you think, that sounds a lot like what the pharmaceutical industry for people does. Well, you might recognize the company that actually owns Zoetis. 2013, Pfizer announced that its animal health business will become a standalone company called Zoetis. In February 2013, Zoetis completed its initial public offering, and subsequently in 2013, Pfizer then sold its minority stake in Zoetis, and Zoetis became a standalone company. That's right, our friends Pfizer, the recipients of billions, and it might be more than that, but billions of dollars from the United States government. Now, don't let that story fool you about who really owns this company. Pfizer is not a minority stock owner. Pfizer owns almost 401 million shares of Zoetis Class B common stock, which represents approximately 80.2% of the outstanding common stock of Zoetis. So they pretty much own Zoetis, does Pfizer. So I already smell a rat. Already smell a rat. Just by knowing that, okay, they fast-track a vaccine for chickens for bird flu. The Biden administration's FDA, at the end of his term, approves this just prior to Trump taking over, with the obvious means and desire to vaccinate chickens in the United States on a large scale. Bet you somebody's making money off of this. You would bet right. I'm not even going to pull Pfizer because you know how much money they make from the federal government. But if you look at Zoetis, these people are making gazillions from the federal government. I pulled them up at USA.spending using the keyword Zoetis, and look what I found. The very first entry was $6.8 million. You wonder what that $6.8 million was? I'll show you. H5N1, avian flu vaccine. That's the bird flu vaccine. Federal government, and this they're spending way more than this, but this is just $6.8 million worth of bird flu vaccine. Now, I found this kind of weird as I was looking into this. This screen right here shows this award has not been linked to any federal account. That kind of harkens back to what Elon Musk was saying the other day, where he said in many cases they don't designate why this money went out, or they don't pull the right product code, or they don't say what department the money's going to, which makes it harder to trace. Actually, I think they did do it. It's just probably not in the right place, because I dug a little bit further and you can see that the person who is awarding this money to Zoetis is the Department of Agriculture, the USDA. Guys, this is more allowed corruption. Deals are made, things are put in motion. We kill off hundreds of millions of chickens. We create a problem. We get somebody to spend a lot of money creating a vaccine to fix the problem. Then we pay a lot of money to that company to buy the vaccine and then mandate it onto the American people and their pets and chickens, right? What a beautiful thing. In the meantime, you're tanking the economy by making groceries, at least that portion of it, chicken meat, eggs, even cow meat. At some point, it's going to affect that. And you're also hurting the chicken farmers by making this a vaccine that they're not going to be able to sell their products. So it's kind of a weird dynamic. It supposedly saves, and we know how the vaccines work, at least the more recent ones. It saves their chicken population that they're not going to be able to sell. So let's say 20 million chickens' lives get saved by this miraculous fast-tracked vaccine. So we just saved 20 million who would have normally died or been culled. If you don't sell them to the American people, you don't sell them at all. Now, what happens there? If they can't sell them, they'll subsidize the farmers back. Likely, that's what they'll do. Either they'll make them starve for a little while and then subsidize them for pennies on the dollar, or they'll subsidize them up front. Either way, the American taxpayer is going to pay for this. So all these things that they've created on the tail end of Biden's administration are all going to have negative impacts on the food supply and on the economy for the Trump administration. Nobody's talking about that. I wish the Trump administration would come out and be more specific about this and discuss this, how this is kind of like a ticking time bomb waiting to go off. It hasn't gone off yet. A portion of it maybe with the culling of the chickens, but we haven't seen its full effects yet because all of it hasn't hit yet. It's going to be a slow-moving thing that's going to slowly eat away at the improvements in the economy that the Trump administration has. So they're going to have to wake up and talk about this, or the American people will wake up one day and go, man, nothing's any better. All this stuff is verifiable online. All of it is. So it's not like they're creating a document with the White House letterhead on it. They should do the same thing that I'm doing to show the American people we didn't create this problem. And we're not actually sitting at the table with the people who were making this decision. This was done prior to the Trump administration. Now, one final thing that I wanted to show you guys that I thought was really comical. I pulled this from the internet. Some of this information comes from the CDC, but this is referencing California. There's massive outbreaks of the bird flu in California right now. I want you to see this. This is some things that they can give you, some tips on how to avoid getting the bird flu. Look at the second bullet. We're talking about bird flu here, but their advice is get the seasonal flu vaccine. Why? California Department of Public Health recommends that all Californians, especially workers at risk for exposure to bird flu, receive a seasonal flu vaccine. While the seasonal flu vaccine will not protect against bird flu, getting vaccinated can lower the risk of being infected with both seasonal flu and the bird flu at the same time. So getting vaccinated also reduces the chance of severe illness from seasonal flu. They are taking a crisis that is building up like a snowball going downhill and using it to peddle their 50% effective flu vaccine. These people are shameless, man.